Man, when I was preparing my sermon last week, I was really wrestling with the text. I mean, Jesus is talking about ripping families apart and saying things like, fear the one who can destroy the body and the soul in hell. Ugh. It was a lot. So when I opened the text this week, I was so happy. I mean, I could use a break this week, right? We all could. But as it turns out, as much as I want to be one, I can never be the person that just takes the low-hanging fruit. Instead, I'm always looking up at the tree, and even if I can't see any other fruit up there, I'm thinking there's probably something better up there, right? Always the hard way with me. In today's gospel, the writer of Matthew uses a version of the Greek word dechomai 6 times. We translate it as welcome, but it also means to receive or to accept someone. And a sermon about hospitality and acceptance, man, that just writes itself, doesn't it? But the problem with writing that sermon, for me, is that it's just too simple. It's too nice. And even if the hidden fruit here isn't any better, we won't know until we try, right? We learned last week that Jesus might be full of unconditional love, but he is very rarely nice. His actions and teachings aren't just about being kind to one another. Kindness is great. Kindness is nice, but at its core, kindness only really allows us to coexist, only allows us to not get on each other's nerves. So instead, Jesus teaches about love, the kind of love that is so deep and broad that it reorders the world. The kind of love that is not a feeling, it's not even an action, the kind of love that is an identity. It's worth remembering that this speech that we just heard in the gospel from Jesus is still part of that missionary discourse that we've been talking about for the past few weeks. So he is not telling his disciples that they should be welcoming. He's telling them that when they go out to the people that he is sending them to, they should be welcomed. He's telling what the reward will be for those that welcome them. So it's interesting here that he begins first by building an ascending narrative of welcome, if you caught that. From the disciples to God. Whoever welcomes them is welcoming God. And then he immediately begins breaking down the kinds of people that they are or that they hope to be. Prophets, the righteous, the little ones. In a descending narrative of welcome that then circles back to their true identity as disciples. What is clear to me here is that their identities as disciples are not formed until they go out into the world. They are welcomed as prophets in the name of a prophet, righteous persons in the name of the righteous. Their self is disclosed as they form those relationships with the people that they are out serving. And they are not fully disciples until they have become like little ones, like the least and the last, reliant on others for something simple, something as simple as a drink. In his best-known book called I and Thou, published in 1923, the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber wrote about theology of identity being formed through relationship. He wrote about the idea that your true self doesn't pre-exist the people you go out and be with. His words, I become through my relation to the thou. As I become I say thou. All real living is meeting. For Buber, a genuine encounter with another person is the only way the true self becomes. And the deepest form of this encounter is with the eternal thou, God. To form the true self, one must encounter the true thou. So just as the disciples were sent into the world as representatives of Jesus, they were sent to become the truest versions of themselves. Prophets to warn others that they are walking off the path. Righteous people speaking the truth in the face of doubt and dissension, and little ones reliant on those around them for that which gives them life. And as I've been saying for weeks now through this preaching of this discourse, we are all called to be disciples. It just looks different. We're not called to not take a coat and not wear shoes and go out into the world and just let others give us everything that we need. But we are, as individuals, still revealed in how we go out into the world as disciples. How we act and speak reveals who we are. But it requires the multiplicity of other people, a diversity of humanity, other thous to encounter to become who we are meant to be. Which means we need to be on the lookout in our jobs and in our homes and in our schools and in our neighborhoods for the people that are welcoming us as prophets and righteous ones. And yes, even those who perceive us as the least of these, the little ones. Now, don't hear me as saying, go out and purchase your soapbox and find your corner today because you need to be a prophet. I'm saying quite the opposite. There are people in your life who look to you for guidance. Our encounters with those around us tell us who they need us to be. It's not about us, it's about them. And in being who they need us to be, we are living into our calling. When people look to us for guidance, they need our prophetic imagination. When people look to us to be honest with them about who they are or about who we see them to be, who we know they can be, they rely on our truth-telling. When there are people in our lives who, whether it's because they just really need to feel needed or maybe they actually really do have what we need, there are people who need our humility. But there's a twist here. There's always a twist. Though we are called to be disciples, Jesus sends folks to us too. So as much as we are the prophets, we are also the whoever's that are meant to be welcoming them. When you see a prophet in your life, and welcome them as a prophet. When there's someone speaking truth to you and you recognize them as righteous, and when you see someone in need and you provide them with that need, you are participating in making their identity real and visible. You participate as the thou that helps them to become. You help to form them as disciples. And when you welcome a disciple, you welcome Jesus. And when you welcome Jesus, you welcome God. And it is that way that we show up in the world for others and allow others to show up for us that makes God present among us. God is made visible in the way we welcome and are welcomed. God is not an individual that sits somewhere else, a sky daddy in the clouds. God is a happening. God is an event. God is not a being because God calls everything into being. God is happening around us in our community, where God is not just felt, but God is made known. And hospitality isn't enough. Kindness isn't enough. Nice is not enough, because to make God visible, we need dechomai. We need to welcome, but we need to receive, and we need to accept them for who they are and allow others to do the same for us. And we all know maybe more than a lot of people right now, that sometimes that means we get hurt. Sometimes you accept someone and call them out as beloved by God, and they still fall short of what you were hoping for them. They will still sometimes disappoint. Sometimes they will even betray us. But hey, sometimes love is met with crucifixion. And yet, we are called to love over and over and over again, and we are called to be loved over and over again. And our reward is not some distant event that happens at something that we call the eschaton or the end of days that nobody really understands. Our reward is now. Our reward is to know all of the thous and to be known by all of the thous. Our reward is the very presence of God in each other. Amen.